I gotta hold it like.
I gotta
like
hold
this.
it right here.
I gotta hold it like Mike Doty of Soul Coughing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first annual interview with Ann Mincieli. This is Ann Mincieli. She is a legend. She is a Grammy Award-winning engineer. She's also a Grammy-nominating engineer. She's also a studio owner. She's also a bass player. She's also a boxer. And she's an avid collector of things. She's a wonderful human being. We've worked together for almost 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years now. Yep. Yeah. 20
And
years.
I have the extreme pleasure of asking her a few questions that actually, more so than any of you, I am very interested in knowing the answer to. What's the most handsome quality that I have? No, I'm just kidding. My first question, Ann, is when did you know that the studios, recording, when did you know that that was what you wanted to do?
I was a guitar player, like you said. I was 16 years old, and I went with my friends to a couple of local studios in New York. They were session musicians. And then so it began. I realized when I went to the studios and watched all the workers and figured out what their roles were, that I could be part of the community. Like, of course, I was like every other 16-year-old wanting to play in a band and wanting to get my feet wet, seeing what musicians did for session work. And my first studio internship was at Marathon, but it was next door to Skyline. So Skyline and Marathon were literally next door to each other. Skyline is a huge, legendary studio in the 90s that was huge. And that's where I really, started out. I met a lot of big artists, and I learned a lot of different roles of, who did what in the studio. And I felt like it was a hub. You met the artist, the producer, the engineer, the writers, the programmers, the label. Back then it was tape, so it was like tape librarian. And I also started an internship at Sony way back when as well, as part of a student thing. So between that and being an intern at a label, I really found a shortcut like that I can intern, and I started interning immediately.
Is that how you made the jump from musician to engineer?
Yeah, I kind of started learning every role in the industry, like tape librarian at the studio, assistant day tech. Like, there was a lot of different roles, and as you were coming up, you could sit in all those roles, and it was always important for me to learn every role: studio manager, engineer, assistant engineer. And all these years later, this was 1990 when I was 16, all these roles now, it's not just one role that you need to learn. Everything kind of crossfades from each other, right? Writers produce, producers write, engineers produce, writers engineer. So it's not so strict like it was years ago, where it's like you're a tape operator, you're a Pro Tools operator, you're an engineer, you're like, now it's all really merged into one role with the twists and turns of time and technology.
Is that how you developed your eye for quality, sitting in every spot?
Yes. And also my versatility to sit in the role that I have now. I've been working with Alicia Keys since 1998, and I have a very dynamic role with her. I'm her head engineer, but I'm also head of music. So I work on budgets, I work on producer decks, contracts, along with Rock Nation. Our management work on like the deal points, because I'm in the studio with Alicia and I know who the writers are and how much of a song she produced, because I'm there engineering it. So it's that much easier to relay the information and just make charts in real time. So
you can speak all the languages.
Exactly.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Just to work hard, to outshine. It's like, I'm into sports, and I really believe, like, to be competitive and to find your passion. And if you could find your passion, this is not really work, and that's some of the best advice. Like, you have to really want to do this, and, it's unglamorous, right? Like, I love you too. It's an unglamorous.
I thought I ordered hecklers. It's not positive hecklers. That's just support.
Serge, he's amazing. But yeah. So totally lost my.
No,
Okay.
And you actually answered my next question, which was, what would you tell somebody just starting out that maybe wants to be where you are? It sounds like work hard,
Yeah.
learn every language.
Correct. Learn every aspect of the industry. They're all tools in your toolbox. You never know what job is going to come along the way. Now it's not such a structured industry like it was. Artists have their own studios, producers have their own studios, where you find yourself doing a little bit of everything. And I guess that's how I approach things. I've also worked with a bunch of different artists, which gave me a huge depth into learning. And that's what I try and teach, my assistants and everyone coming up, is the depth of knowledge, because there's 20 different ways to do the same thing. And just, try to study it all and be open to it all. Don't just pick one thing. It's too early on to understand what you want to do. There's your 5-year goal, and then there's your 5-month goal, and try to figure out,
And
plan and
sometimes
strategize. Yeah.
Sometimes a 5-minute goal. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Gotcha. So the recording industry in general tends to be male dominated, for good or mostly for ill. What has that been like, and what are some ways that can be improved as far as what you can see?
I think we're all trying to improve the numbers. I have an organization, She Is the Music, and it's a huge organization. We're in our 6th year, and we have chapters around the States. We have chapters in UK and overseas. And I think that with, how to improve the numbers is one of the tent poles that we have with She Is the Music. Is we have a database where every female could enter their resume and discography, and it's geo-targeted. So if I need a guitar player in Florida, you could go and search. And so we really kind of developed, because I think artists and A&Rs, they get comfortable with using the same producers and the same writers. So how to change the numbers, like each year it gets better and better, but how to change the numbers is to really open up some opportunities. So having the database is one way, and the other way is just recommending. We get a lot of calls at She Is the Music. I get a lot of calls personally on how can I, do I have a female engineer or someone that, wants to work and learn. And I try to talk to Berkeley and all the schools. I just hired 2 graduates from Berkeley the past month. So it's about being conscious. And I think, over time, you're going to see, a shift. I was fortunate. I started at a very old, I started in 1990 when we used tape machines and 100 input consoles, and it was an older industry. The industry is younger now. I was 16 years old. The industry was older. The artists were older. Now we've opened up the floodgates with, the artists that are out and the age they are and the producers. It's a much younger industry, so it's kind of inspiring. But back then I always was like, if I can work hard and outwork the other 12 assistants that are at Right Track and Quad, then I'm going to get requested. And the flip side of that is for me to do all these little things right so that the artists remember me. And I've gotten many opportunities because you develop a relationship, or you give them that level of comfort that they need, and you do all the little things right. So I've worked hard. I pounded the pavements. I was on the train at 4 a.m. in the morning. I started by only getting $15 a day as an intern for the first 9 months of my career. I certainly wasn't given anything, but I really do believe in hard work. Really, there's really no competition, it's about really working hard.
You're competing against yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
In a certain sense, right?
Yep. I used to look at Quad, and all the interns were in there playing pool, and I just didn't know why they weren't in the rooms, learning. We had 3 J9000 consoles, a digital desk at the time, and a 96 input G+. They were all brand new rooms. We should have been in there learning, where you're just playing video games. You're playing Pac-Man in the lounge, and it's like, go learn, you know? So I cut my teeth at 3 studios in New York, which was Right Track, Skyline, Quad was my main spot for 6 years. So I became staff engineer there as well. So
Is that where you introduced to Alicia?
yes, Alicia's was working at Quad since 1998. She had a deal on Sony, so she had a development deal, and then her first label deal was on Sony. She went to other labels and then found herself back on RCA, which was J Records, but J Records, Jive, everything merged into RCA Records. So we call it RCA Records now for about the past 20 years. But yeah, J Records was a label that Clive Davis started up from scratch with individuals he took from Arista Records. So yeah.
What do you think is the value of the recording studio, since so much of what could happen in a studio can now happen at home?
I think there's a level of magic that happens at the studio. I think certain artists are never going to go in someone's home and work. You know, if a producer has a setup at home, we've always had setups at home. We used to have DA88s and ADATs and MPCs at home with modules, and we eventually migrated to the studio. So I think for, you know, the studio community, I think it's, in my opinion, back and better than ever. It's a standard. It's a standard that we want to keep protocols and procedures, and, you know, it's where the magic happens. You know, my studio had its biggest year ever. You know, yeah, during the pandemic, we were all working in our bedrooms, including us, you know, in hotel rooms. And we found ways to make our portable setups. But you, as an individual that wants to grow in the industry, you need to work alongside individuals. You need to be out there every day watching. Every session I was on and still am on today, every producer works a different way. Every writer works a different way. There's no one template I use for every session.
Like sessions in general, right?
Correct.
Different bass sounds.
So how, you know, like there's only so much you learn at home. So even if you're working at home with one producer, you're not getting the depth of watching many people come in and out of the studio doing different types of things. I found myself in so many situations where I had to figure my way out, whether I'm on stage mixing front of house because our front of house engineer, you know, got COVID, or like I find all these different ways that I get thrown into things, and it's the years and years of experience of being in a studio that allows me to put the whole picture together and piece what I need together, whereas working at home is like, you're only going to get to a certain degree. You know, and if you're only working for one producer that works from home, they have a limited amount of gear, and you're not working with the rest of the individuals in the industry. The studio is a place to network, so.
There's a richness that is lost.
Correct. And the level of, like, I get files from people working at home, and half of the files are missing. They're sitting on the producer's drive that's still at his house, and you know, that's some of the downsides of not learning how to properly, you know, back up files, store files, and you learn that by working alongside engineers that are from the studio, because you have a studio team with senior staff members that are showing you that kind of stuff. So,
right on. Okay, last question.
Sure.
And it's a long one. You've built, let's see if I can get this machine to work. Haha. You've built a lot of studios and things attached to studios.
That was that's what I cut my teeth on and got myself. That's what I learned. That's when I really learned how to design a studio, was this little old house in Long Island that Alicia wanted to convert to a studio, which was dual zone, but we had to flip the zoning and put in all sprinkler systems. But yeah, we had 2 control rooms, a live room, an ISO booth, and that's one of our first projects that we worked on together. I think
I met you in this room.
Yes,
the
lounge. But it was a perfect time. I took a lot of things that I seen from all the different studios around the world and started to implement them. We had to dig deeper, if you remember, to raise the ceiling height. This is lower than the foundation, this area. Yeah,
And that's just here.
yeah.
So that's the control
That's the
room.
control room.
Jungle City, of course.
Yes, Jungle City.
Which is here.
Top. Yep, that's right.
Up on the penthouse.
Yep.
Fabulous spot in New York. Everybody wants a piece.
Yep, we have 2 penthouses and 2 smaller rooms, so 4 rooms total. And after I moved in Jungle, right, we had the other 2 twin penthouse and 10th floor became available, which Alicia hopped in on, and now her private studio is in Jungle. And we have this really great community and hybrid of just everyone coming in and out. It's pretty amazing, you know.
Yeah, you've had some very heavy hitters there.
Yep.
And then we went out west.
And we went out west, yep.
We did a room for Sony.
Yes. I have, as Sydney knows, Sydney manages RCA, one of the facilities that I had helped build in Cali, which RCA is one of the main 4 labels at Sony. I've been working at Sony for 7 years on this studio initiative. So we started it before the pandemic, and it started with a committee and drawings and sitting with the CEO and CFO, and through the twists and turns of a pandemic, as you know, we built 2 studios in Cali together, which were pretty amazing. This is our main flagship studio in the Merida building, which is where our labels live. And then obviously RCA ties into it. They have their own office studio and creative space a half a mile away.
Right, and perhaps arguably one of the coolest things about this studio is that the Sony museum is right here.
Yes, correct.
So there's a replica of the short circuit robot. So that's great. And then you've set up immersive mix environments and things like that.
We were the first. So I do a lot in immersive mixing. I've won 2 Grammys. We did this Apple Music partnership when Alicia put her Christmas album out, called The Masquerade Ball, and it was in Harlem, and we recorded it and mixed it in Atmos, Dolby Atmos, spatial audio, and this was our setup. It was a pretty amazing setup. Neumann came in, and I have this whole system with our speaker stands, and we're able to set it up really quickly. It's really nice. I have an Anubis, and I have a Merging Technologies Happy, and all the cards live in and out. So I have 16 channels of A to D, D to A cards. I use a 16-channel Avid controller, and I really do believe in the immersive space. Those studios are just a different design than our traditional, what we're working with. You know, I really believe in a open space.
Like a living room almost.
Correct.
Free field.
Correct.
More natural.
This is Jungle's live room. I converted it. Yep. Very easily have a storage unit across the street. I bring everything over and set it up. Yep.
So to cap my question, you built a lot of studios, as we've just seen. What is one of the first things you look at when you go to a new studio that lets you know at what level the studio is operating? If it's high quality, if it's just fly by night, what's a tell?
In terms of when I'm traveling, working around the world.
Sure.
I think I look at the type of gear. I look at the acoustics, the dimensions of the control room immediately to understand where I'm working in. I get thrown in a lot of places like hotel rooms. I have portable setups like attack walls that I've purchased for situations like that. But yeah, I definitely, when I'm in a studio and I'm traveling and, you know, we had worked on tour like at Paul Epworth's spot, which I love, Teldex Studios in Berlin and a whole bunch of places. I go in and immediately, I work there a lot, Teldex. I try and also pick the proper studio. So to control, like, what are my needs and what is my artist going to need? I understand her needs. I understand we're bringing a 6-piece band in. Then I need to find the proper studio. Sometimes
because you've done all the jobs.
Right. And sometimes I can't, right? Like sometimes we're in a space and, I'm in, like during the pandemic, I was in really a makeshift studio called Perfect Sound, which had a house and a very small studio. So I complemented that with bringing my own gear, bringing my own speakers, putting some of my own acoustic treatments up. It was a house that they rent as a studio and a house in California. But to my standard, the studio was, it had some acoustic issues, and the control room was really a square, rectangular control room. So we, get to work at tuning the room, seeing what the room may need. I have my Genelec 360s that I take everywhere, and try to tackle I have a staff that works with me. And as you know, I sometimes bring people in like Dirk and, room tuner, PK, whoever I can grab to come in and tune and fine tune the space as best as I can. Yeah.
Is it a pretty quick process for you to go to understand the space?
Some instances I have no time. Like it's just fly by night, and I'm in Milan and we're in the studio and it's great. They have a duality, but none of the patch bay is wired up to the console, and you're in the back of the console because they have all the XLR ins and outs, and it's a beautiful looking space, but it's new, or it's like Alicia don't like to sing in a dead space, and maybe the vocal booth is really tight, and at that point, do I let her sing in the control room with some headphones on? Because her voice is loud. She likes to fill the room up. So I very quickly have to look at where I'm going to be cutting and first and foremost, know what I'm doing going in. If I'm tracking vocals, if I'm tracking a band. If I'm tracking a band, I definitely need a space with the live room that has a bunch of mic pre. So I try to go in knowing what I'm going to be doing, so I have the proper, room to be in. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Me and Josh work every day. We have a couple of new projects we're working on that we're pretty excited about. So stay tuned. We'll have, maybe by next year we'll be able to show it. If it gets lit up for electricity. Yes, details. Yep. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.